Yes, give thanks and praises as we do all the time, every day, every minute, every second, you know. He's the one and only, keeps us all running. This is a new piece. It's a little different for me. It's sort of like a story instead of a poem. But here we go. An oasis of light. Perhaps the best place to start is at the beginning. However, this raises the philosophical question, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Needless to say, such questions were the furthest thing on my mind as I wandered the streets that evening. The only thing I was concerned about was my next cigarette or cup of coffee. You see, I did not have the means to obtain both. This was before the draconian prohibitions of the tobacco control propositions, which outlawed the sale of single cigarettes. The logic of the common man, which reduced smokers to buying a whole pack, since they couldn't purchase individual cigarettes. It had been a long night. The festival had ended, and the cleanup crews had completed the arduous task of cleaning up the park and the adjoining streets. I was still charged with the energy which coursed through my veins and reflected in my heart, steady, rhythmic, pumping. But I get ahead of myself. Before this amazing night had been an equally incredible night and day. I spent that Friday night traveling from Santa Cruz to Los Angeles. Though enervated, I was still able to enjoy the confining and stultifying bus ride. Just before I caught the bus, a guy I had recently met offered me some mushrooms, which I delightedly accepted. Finally, I boarded the vehicle at approximately 11:30 p.m. and spent the next 7 hours in continuous conversation with first one, then another of the passengers. We must have covered virtually every subject under the sun. Some of the passengers were in the military, which of course opened up all manner of conversational avenues. Some had served in Vietnam, while others served in the Gulf War. Eventually I had spoken with virtually everyone who came and went as the bus journeyed southward. The bus arrived in Los Angeles as the sun came up, and morning broke with the city coming awake as the sun marched heavenward. The morning rush of traffic, robots marching to their mechanical tasks, performed unwillingly, while perforce putting on a happy demeanor on their emotionless routine. It happened coincidentally to be the first day of Kwanzaa. So when I reached Lamar Park, after the conclusion of my lengthy and circuitous peregrinations, I found myself in the middle of a full-blown festival with music and more music, non-stop drumming, and vendors with all manner of goods. The smell of incense wafted through the air along with that of exotic spices and the heavenly aroma of open-air cooking. The same force which had energized me into a virtual dynamo of conversation continued during the entire experience of the festival, where I danced non-stop, with or without music. The motor animating me, which had burned steadily for what seemed more like several days than the actual 2 nights and a day, began to sputter. This was not surprising, as I had been going full blast for almost 72 hours. And now at 3 a.m., I was simply looking for a place to rest my head. Since I had been wandering the streets after the end of the festival, I had chanced upon a residential area without a single lit structure. Everywhere I turned it was the same. I was thoroughly lost. The streets were so deserted and desolate that the darkness in itself looked threatening, and the only emotion I could sense was that of foreboding, a kind of silent and sinister effluvium. I was at the end of my rope. I had burned up so much energy that I was on the brink of collapsing. During this entire time, I had the most insubstantial nourishment, insufficient for a pigeon, let alone a human being. I knew that if I did not reach some kind of shelter where I could actually sit down, which I had not done for a day and a night, I would collapse. As I dragged myself along, exhausted and barely able to keep my feet moving, it looked like the end. In despair, I cried out, only to hear a voice say, "Don't worry, trust in the Lord." Upon hearing the voice, I looked up and saw the light. Yum Yum Donuts, open 24 hours. Thank you very much.